Okay, I think we can start now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the third day of week 2 of the WiLG Women's Mentorship Program. Today is going to be an amazing session. I want to thank our mentor who's already in the room, and I also want to thank our facilitator for today who's already in the room. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction. Today's session is going to be facilitated by Cecilia Kasinga, and she's someone who has been my friend for quite a while, and she's super passionate about women's rights and mentorship. And she's also a part of the WiLG family. And today she's going to be facilitating our session for today. So Cecilia, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. So this is Cecilia, and I'll be taking over from Veronica. So today we have Nafisa Atiku-Adejuwon. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And she will be talking about branding. And I would like to congratulate you, Nafisa, on being selected on the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And we wish you the very best in this amazing endeavor. So just a bit of a short introduction about who Nafisa is. She is a multidisciplinary person. She's also a Walter Carrington Fellow, a program manager on gender justice. She's also did a branch for mental health rights and so much more. Like the list keeps going on, and I believe she will highlight a bit of it or a lot of it when she's talking about branding. And she is also a formidable and audacious woman who will be talking about branding today, as I said previously, and we're grateful for this opportunity so that we can learn more about branding, because it's something that is not really spoken in the curriculums, and it's something that we don't really know about. So let's give her a resounding welcome in the comment section, make her feel welcomed, and this session will proceed. So we have the Q&A session later. So if you guys have any questions to ask, please jot it down in the comment section, or during the Q&A session, you can on your mics and you can ask any questions that you want. So Nafisa, we give you the floor, and we're ready to hear whatever you've prepared for us. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cecilia, for the very warm welcome, and also thank you once again for mentioning the MWF selection. Super grateful for that. Sorry, pardon me. It's Sunday, so I'm a bit tired. But we have a really interesting class we're supposed to take today, and also thank you, Veronica, for taking the time to follow up and invite me for this mentorship session. Impacting young women is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So it's always great to be in a room filled with young women who are so dedicated to harnessing their potential. So branding, the topic in the room, which a lot of advocates don't exactly really like to talk about, but I think it's really important. And I think I'll start with my own personal story. If at any point in time you can't hear me, please let me know. I graduated from University of Nigeria, Nsukka, after studying law for 5 years in 2015. And since 2016, I have been very active in the international development space, especially when it comes to democracy and governance, women's rights, right, and young people, and the sustainable development of our country. I started doing activities even when I hadn't been formally hired, in an organization. I started doing things by myself, hosting free civic education classes when I was doing my NYC in Ibadan State, as I was serving at the Ministry of Justice, as a counsel for the state. And it was even on the basis of the work that I did that I got an award from the Uni of Ife. But just to show you that, I started working a long time ago, back in 2016. And I have been quite consistent with the kind of work I do. And that consistency has yielded, a lot of results and achievements, by the way. Follow me, I'm getting somewhere. But I think sometime in the middle of last year, I had to sit down and do an audit of my own career and leadership journey. I wanted to take stock. I wanted to understand where I had done good, great, and understand what I was not doing so well. I wanted to, fine tune my goals and see where I am right now. Is this where I want to be? Is this a place where I had, from the beginning when I started working in the nonprofit sector, is this where I intended to be at this point in time in my journey? Because if you count, it's about 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 20, about 9 years. So I had to do that stock, and I told myself that you're really passionate about the work you do, and it's clearly showing. You have done, your portfolio is rich. You've done quite a number of things, right, over the past 7, 8, 9 years. But there is a problem in terms of the way you have positioned yourself in your sector. One of your goals at almost at the point of when you said you wanted to hit the 10-year mark in your career was that you wanted to be known within your niche as someone who is a thought leader or a knowledge expert on certain things such as democracy, women's rights, and youth development. And while you have the portfolio to back that up in terms of people knowing you and communicating that value proposition, a lot of people don't know that, right? And we all know that influence is usually better than power. The ability to use soft power to influence people to advocate for certain things. And so I took a break from social media. I think I took like a 2-3 month break sometime in the middle of last year. And I said, you know what, I'm going to just take a pause, rest from posting every single time, because I really, really did an audit and I felt like I wasn't communicating the right things. And then I started reading and researching. Right. In the process of reading and researching, I came across this book called I Am My Brand by Kubi Springer, which I do encourage other, if you do have the means, please go and buy it. It's a really great book. Right. And through that entire process, I was reading the book, I was implementing certain things, I was doing more research, I was saying, who do I want to be? Who do I want to, what do I want to communicate that I do? Who am I? What is my authentic story as an advocate and as a change maker within this space? Right. And I was able to do that within that process. Within that time, I was able to create a logo, do a whole brand guide, say, for the next 5 or 10 years, these are the issues I want to be known for. These are the things I want to focus on. How am I going to communicate that in my social media? How am I going to communicate that in my value offerings that I'm giving to people in terms of consulting for different organizations and speaking at different organizations, or even just, joining an online campaign? How do I communicate that? How do I put that into practice? So I spent like 3 months doing that. And then I came back to social media. And then I started putting into practice what I learned. Right. And before you knew it, it was like as if, suddenly there was a greater focus on the work that I've been doing for the past how many years that wasn't there before. All of a sudden, people are saying, oh, we like the work you do. Oh, we didn't know you did this. Oh, we heard about you and we want to feature you on this program. We want to get you to do this. We want to get you to do that. It was like as if things turn around. But all it really took was a 3-month break and a 3-month space to try and articulate where I was in my journey and figure out where I wanted to be. So I'm coming from this perspective and telling my own story because I realized that there are a lot of great people, great young women doing great work. And sometimes if you don't learn how to position your accomplishments or shout about your accomplishments or publicize your accomplishments, a lot of people are not going to know how awesome you are. And it's not just about knowing how awesome you are, communicating your value and communicating the things you do and the things you're passionate about. It's also your way of inspiring other people to be the same, to do the same and even do more. There's this quote that says, I'm paraphrasing now, but it says, shining your own light gives other people the permission to do the same. I can't tell you how many other young women have said, you inspire me, you encourage me to do this by this story, this post, this thing that you said. And I am humbled at the fact that people can relate to who I am, and people can relate to the story I tell, and people can relate to the things I do. So branding, you're not just branding because you want to feel like the newest kid on the block. You're also branding because you want to be able to touch lives through the journey of the marvelous things that you're doing within your community and within, your geographical location. So having told this I hope touching story that you might be able to relate to, what is branding? Really, what is branding in the true sense of the word? What does that mean? Is it just a marketing buzzword for you, or is it something that that you can relate to and something you can implement in your immediate life? So I mean to try and give you a definition, right? And I mean to give you some context. A lot of people put things on social media today that are not who they are or what they represent. They are putting things that they would like to represent, but who are you in the first place? So before even saying that I want to be this person, you need to investigate who you are as a human being. What are the things that you are passionate about? Because like it or not, people are not going to relate to fake stories or fake personalities or fake personas or alter egos or whatever that thing is, right? They are going to relate to the authentic version of you that has gone through challenges and is doing great work and still has her own weak sides but still manages to show up strong. Why? Because they can see themselves in you. They can see their struggles reflected in your journey. They can see their coming successes reflected in your already established success. You give them something to aspire to, something to hope for. So if you are doing yourself a disservice, if you say, I want to brand myself, and you brand yourself in a way that doesn't represent the true value of who you are, right? People aren't going to connect with you, and your branding will most likely be a flop. Either it will be a flop, or people will start following you, and then one day somebody meets you in person and you're not the person who you claim to be online, right? One of the greatest compliments I got from someone was that I met the person in person and I did not know I had had a conversation with the person online. And we have a conversation, and then the person says, "Oh, I'm really happy that you are the same way online, the same way you are offline." And I was like, oh, my goodness, that's a compliment. It means that I somehow, through the material I'm putting online, right, my real personality, my real person is showing through. So the first thing you have to think about before you even say you want to brand as something, right, is that you have to establish your own authentic person as a change maker, as a business leader, as a leader in whatever sense or sector that you think you are. Are you passionate about the environment? Why are you passionate about the environment? Are you passionate about gender rights? Why are you passionate about gender rights? Are you passionate about governance and accountability? What is the story? What's your villain or what's your superhero success story? What is that thing that happened that made you think, my God, I need to start talking about these issues? What makes you human? And how do you craft that story in a way that people can relate to, see themselves in you, and want to follow you and follow the work you're doing because you inspire them? So that's the first thing when it comes to branding, right? You need to establish yourself. If you go to my my Instagram bio, you will see that, I think, what's the quote there by Ellen Wentworth? She said, your authenticity is your activism. And that's the honest truth. We need to show up as ourselves, and we don't need to show up as Oprah. You might admire Hillary Clinton, you might admire Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, you might admire Mo Abudu, you might admire who again? Who is the great? Who I won Melinda Gates, whatever. You might admire each and every one of these women, but you need to show up as yourself, because there is no other duplicate of yourself, and there is a good reason why there is no other duplicate of yourself. And you don't need to be another duplicate for another woman who is doing great things. You can learn things from her, right? But there is no other you, and we need you at this point in time. I don't know if you can get what I'm saying. So basically, that was just really much of the context, but really it's just trying to say that a brand is an emotional connection. It represents who you are, and that branding, or that your brand, must be able to have an emotional connection with your target audience. Which brings me to the next step that I'm going to say. So who are the people? Who are your target audience? I will give myself an example. So when I was saying, who am I? Right. Let me tell you my own story. I was a young woman who was interested in governance and politics and development. And in my university, I was always the only young woman there, in a crowd of like plenty guys drinking beer and, talking about politics and shouting people down. Right. And then I left university, and I really wanted to do politics, and I really wanted to understand development issues and gender issues. But the problem was that I didn't have any other, what's it called, younger woman who wasn't in her 50s or 60s, right, but possibly in her 30s, that could guide me. The women in their 50s and 60s and 70s were too busy to give me the light of day. And I didn't have any immediate mentors within the 30 to 40-year-old gap. So I had to do the best I could. I winged, I read books, right? And then when I had a few women that could give me their time, I I basically followed it up and make sure I got the value out of that relationship, right? So my own gap was that in my 20 to 30-year-old experience, I'm in my 30s now, I didn't have any female mentors, female examples I could look up to, especially in these spaces. And so the focus of my work has been young women's development, even in the international development sector. So if we're talking about climate, we're talking about gender, if we're talking about health, if we're talking about governance and accountability, I will talk about those issues on a large landscape. But I will always have a specific reference to young women's development because women are not homogeneous, right? They are different. And that's something that a lot of international development initiatives and solutions have failed to take into cognizance. So when they design initiatives for women in politics, they focus on the older women, they don't focus on the younger women. Forgetting that if you don't get younger women into politics, we won't have women in politics the way we need them to. I even wrote a book about it, right? And that line has been consistent through my professional life. I've always been working with people, young people. With the book I wrote, with the organizations that I work for, the work I do in JBV, focus on the younger demographic of women, right? So you can see that has been my target audience for a very long time. That's something you also need to define yourself, because you can't just be a brand for everybody, right? A lot of people might be able to relate to you, but you need to have your specific target audience. You need to define who those people are. What are their needs? What are their aspirations? Can they relate to your story? You need to define that for yourself as a whole, right? Because it helps your brand look cohesive. It helps what you stand for look authentic. As again saying that I'm everything to everybody. The way Buhari said it, that how did he even say it? I've even forgotten. Basically, I'm for everybody and for nobody. I think that was how he said. I think that was pretty much how he said it, right? Yeah, exactly. And everybody knows how Buhari ended. You can see the economy is in shambles. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person that nobody exactly knows what they stand for, because that's when brands fail, personal brands fail, when they can't exactly articulate who they are here for, right? So we've defined how we've talked about your authenticity. We've talked about what the brand is and the emotional connection. We've talked about having your target audience, and then there's something that is called your brand audience. I'm sorry, your brand promise. What are you promising people? Like, for instance, let me think. So if I don't know how many of you know Ebano supermarkets. I like shopping, first of all. And anytime I enter Ebano, first of all, the first thing that hits me is the smell. It doesn't have a negative smell. It has this fresh new smell that I like. And then I enter and everywhere is arranged and the lighting is perfect and it's clean. And I know that I'm in for a very good shopping experience, irrespective of the fact that, milk, one tin of milk now is about 780 naira. I don't know what is happening in this country. But it's a brand promise that anytime I go into a banner, I'm going to leave feeling this sort of way. So when people come in contact with your brand, how do they leave feeling? Like, do they leave feeling inspired, encouraged, motivated, smarter, more intelligent? What is the value that you are giving to people, right? Is it just inspiration? It's okay for it to basically be one, two, or three things, which honestly I think that's fine, right? But your brand promise is what will make people come to you. Apart from the fact of emotionally connecting with you, people won't keep on coming to your page or coming to revisit your profile, etc., if they don't know that you have some kind of value that they need in their daily lives. I don't know if that makes any sense. For my own self, right? Because I'm holding my notes here as well, so that I can be very practical when I'm having these discussions. When I had this discussion with myself, I said, you know what, when people encounter my brand, whether it's me in person or me on social media or me having a class, I want them to leave that particular session feeling bold, feeling empowered, feeling inspired and courageous and passionate about the work they're doing, and also feeling more intelligent after the class, having left with knowledge that they probably didn't have before, right? So these are like things. That's my own example. That's my own personal example. I'll encourage you that, after this class, you think about some of the things that I've said. The class is recorded, so I believe you can replay it over and over again. So you think about what's your own authentic story. What is your brand promise? Who are your target audiences, right? You could basically just say, when you think of my brand, when people think of my brand, how do you want them to feel? It's as simple as that, right? And then we now go into the more critical things. Like, so I want to also say another thing for my own personal story. When I was designing, the brand that I wanted to push out, right? I looked, if you notice, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has a certain level of traditional wear that she wears, traditional attire that she wears. She wears her famous head tie like Rivers women. That's how she ties it. My mother used to tie it that way too, with her up and down, or with her complete attire, or obvious equationally, or even to bring it closer to her generation. The former African youth envoy called Ayashebi. She always comes out with vibrant colors, and she has this head scarf that she wears. It's like Ankara, but she always wears a headscarf. She's never caught without a headscarf. They are trying to do something, but some people might not understand it. What they are trying to do is top of the mind recognition. So immediately you see a headscarf, even though it's not Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I say, that's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's style. Immediately you see a headscarf that looks like Ayashebi, say that's Ayashebi. Immediately you see a dress that looks like Obiezi Kwesi, you see that's Obiezi Kwesi, right? Immediately you see some items of clothing, you say that's what this thing represents that person. You even start to forget that it's an Ankara scarf. The only thing that you used to remember it is Obiezi Kwesi, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, or Ayashebi. Right? Your dressing is also an important way of communicating what you stand for. Take, for instance, we were in a staff meeting the other day, and we are talking about communication in a workshop. And one of the colleagues in my office said that, I noticed you started wearing purple, and purple is what you use on your social media. Is it because you love purple, or you're trying to communicate something? And I told her, I love purple, yes. I love pink, yes. And I love black. But the reason why I use purple on my social media, it's more of it. You've not seen me in person, but if you know me in person, you notice that my entire wardrobe is tending towards purple, right? Because I go for a lot of events. That the reason why I'm using purple as a standard trademark color is because purple is known or associated with the women's movement or gender equality. Look at International Women's Month, the color is purple. The other color you could probably go towards is orange, because it represents 16 days of activism. And then I ask myself, what's the color of the book that I released? It's orange. So I'm very intentional about picking colors that can associate me with my message. It was the same thing that Hillary Clinton did when she lost the presidential elections in her time. She had two pieces of clothing. She had one for purple. She had one purple and she had one white. I can't remember what she wore when she came to come and announce her, the results of the election and to accede to Donald Trump. But it was either purple or white. One was to represent the women's movement, etc. But those colors are strongly associated with the women's movement and gender equality. So instantly, when people see my brand, when people see my logo, right, they instantly know that, oh, she's trying to pass across the message. Tomorrow, they see me, if they see something popular, they're like, oh, that's Nafisa. For some people, you might not entirely see the importance of it. It might not even be color. That's the funny thing, right? It might just be the way you dress. The way you dress is also an unspoken way of communication that people get, but you might not understand that people are actually interpreting things from the way you are dressed. Some people only wear pantsuits, the same way with Hillary Clinton. There was a woman who was running for office some time ago, and I think it was Vogue that had her sit down in America, actually, that had her sit down, right? Because she had made some really crazy fashion choices over the couple of days. And then they asked her, and then she said that, the environment and climate change is one of the key things that she has in her agenda. And she wore this very ugly looking dress to pass across a message, because she knew that she wore that dress, people were going to talk about it and say how horrible she looked. And people were going to come and ask her, why did you wear this dress? And explaining why she wore the dress. she was going to draw a huge level of awareness to an issue that she had been trying to get people's attention on for a very long time. To just to show you how very, what's it called, very important the way you position yourself, not just on social media, not just in telling your story, but your appearance has a key way of passing across certain messages. I wish, a lot of people would understand, and I know the economy is not friendly, so buying clothes now is like, it's like crazy stuff. I was looking online yesterday and I'm like, man, wow, right? But honestly, I think it's a notable investment that we can make to making our brand a much more holistic and relatable component of our personalities. Now let's go on to things like logo. So I had someone to do my logo. If you had the funds, I would encourage that you do that as well, because it takes less stress off you, and they seem to know what they're doing. When we're talking about issues like logo, you have to also, like I said, by the time you're doing your logo, you then understand what you stand for, you understand the sector in which you are working in and who your target audience is. And then you then have to look for symbolism that is attached to your target audience and who you represent. So if you look at my logo in a way, right, we try to infuse the elements and symbolisms that represent inclusion, equality, and diversity. It has basically different formats, but if you look at it, you see we try to do my name and add those other things. So immediately they see the logo on, let's say, letterhead or a social media post or something, they can identify and say, you know what, this organization or this brand stands for a particular thing, right? And they're able to communicate who I am and the things that they stand for to their own value proposition, etc. Basically, that's how things go. You do branding because you want to get recognized and, of course, touch people's lives, right? So you need to keep that at the forefront of your mind. And then, sorry, I need to take a break so that I can take a sip of water. My throat is very dry. So maybe you could take this like 5 minute interlude so that maybe if anybody has any questions, they could ask. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so since Nafisa is taking a break, let me know if you guys have any questions and how are you finding the session so far. You can unmute your mic, or you can text it on the chat section.
Thank you very much, Nafisa. Thank you very much, Cecilia. I mean, one thing I wanted to state was what I had learned, and that's identifying your brand promise. I think I had to go and search what Hillary Clinton wore, and actually she wore white. And they said it was also, and she also has a signature of wearing pants. So I mean, that's her brand, and that's what she's going after. I mean, I know people's brands, but I didn't know it was deep to the point that she was linking it to the women's suffrage movement. So I mean, that was really, really a good lesson for me. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much. I really did enjoy that.
Well, thank you, Veronica, for that. Well, back to the audience, do you guys have anything else that you want to say? What did you learn from the bit of what Nafisa has spoken to us? You can write that on the comment section, or you can unmute your mic. Okay, if nobody has anything, please make sure that you have your Q&A, your questions in the comment section, or at the end of the session, you can kindly unmute your mics and you can ask her whatever you want to ask her.
Hi, everyone. Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome back, Nafisa. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. So I just have a couple of more things I would like to talk about before we officially call it a day. So we're going to talk about brand archetypes. There's actually a thing called brand archetypes. We're going to talk about values, interests, and abilities. And then we're going to talk about a little technical things like, your color and what they represent, and even down to fonts. Apparently it's a thing. Yes, I discovered that as well while I was trying to create my own persona. So when we talk about values, interests, and abilities, you need to also remember your brand is about you. It's not about any person, right? While you understand that you are creating a brand to connect emotionally with a target audience, you need to understand that the person that you are marketing is you. You are marketing your values, your interests, and your abilities. So imagine like three circles, and one circle is talking about is your values, another circle is your abilities, another circle is your interests, right? So when you talk about things like your values, like for example, one of my values is inclusivity, right? Empathy, right? Good leadership, compassion, right? And when you now bring it down to my own abilities, I would say that, I'm good in partnerships and stakeholders. I'm good in leadership. I have good organizational skills. I'm a hardworking person. I am genuine and transparent. And then when you go to things like interest, right? Like I said, I'm reading from my own personal notes, so it's as realistic as possible. My interests are, I like performing, not singing or dancing. I can dance to save my life, but performing in terms of speaking in public and making presentations. I like writing, I like traveling, I like mentoring, I like creating things, and of course I like shopping, right? So picture those individual circles by themselves and then picture them together. How do they intersect, and what are those things that you feel that are popping up intermittently? In my own what's it called, in my own circle here, I can see compassion, I can see visionary. That is combining my values with my abilities. In my values and my interests, I can see helping others. It's like a core thing that links every other thing together. It's always important to have like a roadmap of these things, so that you can see the ones that come together and the ones that you can most effectively project as much as possible. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I have isolated things on the other side. Like for example, I have shopping. Shopping is definitely not in my values, and shopping is definitely not in my abilities, right? It's just an interest. So that's not a part of me that I can effectively project to people that will be very strong. But there are certain things around leadership, around compassion, around empathy that have their way of interlinking around the value, ability, and interest, what's it called, ecosystem. Since it's so strong in terms of my personality, it's a really easy thing for me to project and that people can relate to. So when you're able to do that, right, you're able to identify things that you can say, you know what, I'm going to focus on this instead of trying to focus on everything. Like I said, remember earlier in the class, you can't be everything to everyone, but you can be something to a specific target audience. You have like other, so let me go on and just read. They have like other types of abilities, right? Creativity, problem solving, artistic, connecting with people, networking, right? Speaking in front of people. When it comes to values, you can have like things like results, love, commitment, excellence. When you have things like interest, you can have like education and learning, life, blogging, swimming, right? Plays. Okay, I think my daughter just stepped in.
Okay, we'll wait for Nafisa to come back. In the meantime, please, guys, if you have any questions, do jot them down.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome back.
Thank you. Yes, my daughter came into the room and I didn't want her. Yes, I know it's the interrupters. Okay, so moving on from the value, interest, and ability ecosystem, we're going to talk more about your target audience and how to identify things that you should also take into consideration when you're defining your target audience. Right. So one of the first questions, I'm just going to drop a few, and then you can feel free to build up on the categorizations that you need to also create. So you want to talk about their age group. I remember earlier on in the class, I said, as I am a gender equality activist and advocate, right? Women are not homogeneous. And we need to start understanding that. And I said I wanted to focus on the younger women. Although at the time it was an unconscious decision, it was me eternally already creating and identifying the target group, which was, younger women, the age group rather, which was younger women. See, this can also even apply to other, different intersecting threads, right? In gender, we call it intersecting vulnerabilities, but you can see it's intersecting threads for the purpose of this discussion. So for other target audiences, it can be their age. For some other target audiences, it can be a thing of ethnicity or race. For some other target audiences, it can be an issue of education. How educated are these people? Like, for example, we have Wazobia. Wazobia radio station most likely caters to their target audience, who are people that speak pidgin. I don't know how many of us listen to radio in Abuja, but there's this person called Ordinary President, and he starts with Belembe, oh yo yo. It's the radio station is not for people that have masters. No pun, no disrespect intended, right? But it's meant for people who are, I don't want to say not very educated, but people who are not in the elite or wealthy group of part of Nigerians. It's meant for the mass people, possibly the middle class, the lower middle class, the people that are still on poverty, basically the people who can relate to that kind of message. It's not a very highbrow message. It's more of a kind of rural message. So they speak in pidgin. They say all sorts of things, right? The conversations that they have sometimes are really funny. But funny enough, that's where you see most CSOs, people like RAPA, Women's Rights Advancement Protection Alternative, they go to do their advocacy campaigns, because the people that they want to reach are not the people that have, tens and hundreds of millions to their account. They are the people that are still working below, let me not say below the poverty line, a little bit above the poverty line, and are just drifting, everywhere. I don't know any taxi driver that is not listening to Embelembe. Every single time I enter a taxi ride, next thing is Embelembe, oh yo, they have their target audience. So you see, this whole thing about target audience is not just restricted to age group. It can be restricted to, socioeconomic status. It can be restricted, it can be focused on, what kind of race they're on. Are they Igbo, Yoruba? Are they, Caucasians? Are they Hispanic? Are they Italians? Different things. And that's where, you start to narrow down, these differences, and it helps you to even more accurately create the kind of compelling messages that can appeal to them, right? Instead of having one message that is trying to shoot many blanks at 100 different people, right? We also need to talk about their gender. What gender are they? Like I said, different intersecting lines, right? What's their ethnicity, and other different things. So I believe I've given quite a bit in terms of how you further define your target audience as a whole, right? And I think we'll now go down to, my goodness, it's 4:43. We'll now go down to archetypes. I think that's the last thing I would say, and then we would definitely move on to, questions, etc. So when we talk about what's it called, brand archetypes, the way people define personalities and say there's a sanguine, there's a choleric, there's a phlegmatic, there's a melancholy, right? Yeah, four different categories of personalities. It's the same thing we also have in brand archetypes. So you have different ones, like the innocent. I'm going to give real life examples, not, of course, not Nigerian examples, because I don't think that our own PR and branding ecosystem in Nigeria has, matured up to that level. But we have people like the innocent, and that's like Princess Diana. I believe everyone knows Princess Diana. We have, that's personal branding. So in terms of the explorer, we have people like Will Smith. In terms of the ruler brand archetype, we have people like Anna Wintour. How many of us has watched Devil Wears Prada? She's a ruler, definitely territorial boss. In terms of the creator, we have people like Bill Gates, Martha Stewart, who is very into, lifestyle branding. In terms of the caregiver, we have people like Oprah and Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa. In terms of people like the brand archetype of the magician, we have, what's it called, Steve Jobs. In terms of the hero archetype, we have people like President Obama, and I think that's pretty obvious. In terms of the outlaw archetype, we have people like Russell Brand. I don't know how many people know Russell Brand. He was married to Katy Perry and they divorced. In terms of the lover archetype, we have people like Marilyn Monroe. I'm sure a lot of us know her. In terms of the jester archetype, we have people like Kevin Hart. And then the regular guy stroke girl archetype, we have people like Ellen DeGeneres and Anthony Joshua. So I'm just going to say two more things and then I'm just going to keep quiet. Like I said, colors have a way of communicating like what your brand stands for. I think we have different colors like red, yellow, purple, white. They all have their different significations. My own purple basically stands for royalty. I will say that because I know that by hand, right? But you can also Google these things and figure out how the color relates to what you represent. And lastly, please never forget that your brand has a voice. What voice are they hearing when they listen to you? Is it harsh? Is it commanding? Is it comedic? Does your brand voice really communicate the kind of person you are? Like it or not, we have this inner voice in our head that whenever we're reading a social media caption or whether we're reading something, honestly, our voice attunes to how it perceives that person is having the conversation with us. And that's how other people are also perceiving the content that you're putting online, the books you're writing, the articles you're proposing. So always know that your brand has a voice, and you always need to consciously check whether in the way that you are phrasing the content you are putting is an authentic representation of the things that you stand for. And I think I'll call it a day here. Pause. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Nafisa. That was inspirational. That was amazing. So now we're going to welcome the Q&A question session. So if anybody has a question, please unmute your mic or you can type it into the comment section and you can speak out. So Nafisa, I actually do have a question, and thank you for what you're trying to talk about branding, because I don't know if you know, I'm from Tanzania and it's not really part of our curriculum to even talk about branding. I didn't even know what branding was. So we know branding a bit because of the musicians that are from Tanzania, but there is nothing more to it. We just hear brand yourself, put yourself out there. And when you were talking about Hillary Clinton, the colors that she wear, and it made me kind of perceive about different things which are branded out there, but we don't really know. We assume branded as clothes, like how we say Louis Vuitton and stuff like that, but we never know that branding a person is so important. So now I have a couple of questions while people are jotting down their questions. And my first question is about what you spoke earlier on. You talked about consistency. In a sense, that was a key thing that yielded the results that you were able to achieve till today. To date. So how can you advise the youth who face a lot of adversity when it comes to procrastination in their daily lives, which renders them in several delays? Like, how do you tell them, okay, stop procrastinating, focus, be consistent, because it's difficult, consistent can be a one word, but it's difficult to actually prolong it, and it's difficult to actually focus on something that you want to do. So sometimes you might be like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And some people never end up doing anything. So for you, you always talked about consistency. So how were you able to actually focus on what you're doing and be consistent despite the procrastination that overwhelms us in our daily life?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Cecilia. Nice to know that you're from Tanzania. So for me, right, while I did have, I said I was consistent, within the consistency, there were moments where honestly it was really hard to do that. In fact, there were moments, that, like I said, I gave up, I took a break. Even when I started the class, I said last year in the middle, I took like a 3-month break of, just trying to reboot. Consistency is important, right? Because you can never tell when the cup is going to get full. Really, you can't. You cannot estimate. You can't give an accurate map of your future. You can't do any of that. But the one certainty that you do have is that the cup is going to get full one day and your hard work is going to overflow. So some mornings, which I am telling you in advance if you haven't already experienced them, some mornings you're going to wake up and you're not going to do anything. You're not going to feel like doing anything. Sometimes you need to take that break. Take a day, take a week, take a month, but don't stay too long off the track before you become redundant, because that break is necessary for you to recoup, to experience those creative juices running again, and for you to actually connect to what really made you to reconnect to your why, of why you are doing certain things. Because us advocates, we're always off from one campaign on the other. We work so much that sometimes we then forget why we are working, and then we become burnt out. And that's not a pretty place to be. So when you then realize that, these things are happening, it's necessary to take a break in the middle of the consistency. That in itself is a form of consistency, that you're not taking the time out to be out of the game, but you're taking the time out to be more involved in the game and to be better at the game. So there are two different things, right? Some people and sometimes you see this procrastination can actually be a form of tiredness. Some people are, for me, when I start procrastinating a lot, I know that there's a part of me that is really tired that needs to time out. And it's important to know the difference between when you're giving up and when you are really, really tired, right? So I think that's an important thing. And a couple of things. This journey is not an easy journey. Life is not an easy journey, and you need to celebrate your wins as much as your small wins, as much as you're going to celebrate the massive ones. If you did this advocacy campaign today and you had like 5 people celebrate it, the fact that you got 5 people to believe in your vision is great. Celebrate your small wins so much, right? And communicate that so well that you feel like as if it's the best thing you've ever done. Because you know what that's going to do? It's going to make you feel like as if you are making progress, which in fact you are doing. But some people look at their accomplishments and say that I think this is too small, I'm not even going to bother celebrating it. I should have been, this marvelous international development expert and talking at the UN every day. But the people that are talking at the UN didn't get there in one day. That's the thing. Like for some people who, like, I moved from Lagos to Abuja. I've been in Abuja this is my 4th year of being in Abuja. People are going to say that she's been in Abuja for just 4 years. How is she, getting fellowships and going to the US? But they don't understand that I had been doing the work for a very long time. And people who don't know how the nights of working and sacrificing and the amount of funds and resources of my own personal funds that I put on the table to make sure that the people that I care about and the causes that I care about are properly funded. They have no idea of that. So they will judge me based on my immediate, whatever they see. But be rest assured that everyone that has succeeded in the way that you are envisioning yourself to succeed has put in an incredible amount of work that you are not privy to at the moment. But if you take the time out to ask for their stories and listen to their stories, then you would know. So by the time you have that context, when you are going on your journey, you might feel tired, but you want to go because you know that if this person could do it and go through this kind of stress, then my own is just right in front. And I just have to keep on moving and moving and moving. Consistency is the greatest win to success in life. However, whatever those success is, you will define for yourself.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that response. It was really very elaborative. So this comes to my second question, since I don't see anybody asking. When it comes to branding, would you say it's something that we need to do from a young tender age? And when I say young tender age, I mean like before puberty, before adolescence. And would you say how we carry ourselves, our accomplishments, our career path, what we focus on, and how we communicate, and so much more? So if yes, do you think there's a need to be aware of what and who we are when we are young? But with the communities that we grow up in, I know I'm from Tanzania and you guys are from Nigeria, but we know that there's a correlation of how resources are really limited. So how can someone overcome these hurdles at the same time want to rebrand themselves when they're at a younger age? Because I know branding is much more easier when you start from a younger age, but then when it gets difficult when you get to an older age.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that question. So in terms of branding at a younger age, it's not something I really paid attention to because honestly, I wasn't really concerned about anything at a younger age apart from passing my exams and going to college. However, branding is important. And I want us to demystify branding and just put it at a very basic level. Branding, apart from being an emotional connection with your target audience, is communicating the authentic version of yourself. And I also want to, because I can see, I can imagine the progression of someone who is younger and known for something else and evolving into another person who is trying to still understand herself and sees herself not connected with what she had created when she was younger, right? Your brand is allowed to evolve. That is why you have, businesses rebranding, because they are changing. And as you as a young adult will change. and your brand is allowed to change with you. So if you go through life and you find yourself evolving and you come to a person and then you find out that what you had created is not in tandem with who you are, then you do a brand audit. You reevaluate where you are, who you are, and then you evolve to fit. See, I like to say this, that human beings are like onions. Well, yes, they make you cry, but that's not the point, right? They have so many layers to them. I still believe that I'm going to own a mega business within my lifetime. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I love shopping too much not to own a shopping business by myself, right? And a lot of other things. I might write a novel, right? So in terms of trying to connect the dots and navigate branding when you've known it from a very young age and when you're older, understand that you are allowed to evolve with it. Second thing, navigating the resources and etc. I would like to phrase it this way, that how do I put this, sometimes you might not need a lot of resources to become that persona that you want to represent the world, right? Be innovative about it, be creative about it. There are so many resources today, like ChatGPT is there, Canva is there. Although ChatGPT is AI, I do not ask ChatGPT to create stuff for me, but sometimes I ask it to help me to fine tune exactly what I'm saying to a particular way, because in my head I might not be able to communicate it that way right now, right? But you have these free tools that are available to help you to design things, create things, even you're Abuja and you want to do like a photo shoot, there are plenty places with plenty options. Or you can save for it like I did. Like I knew I wanted something, to do something like really good. So I saved for like 2-3 months, right? The same thing I'm doing now, because I'm going to do not like a whole revamp, but do like a whole new set of headshots, professional headshots. And please, that's very important. Please do a professional headshot. Just have one. Put it on your LinkedIn, just have a professional headshot. However you want to do it, my sister, just do it, right? Those things are really important for people perceiving you, even down to your Instagram handles or your email accounts or your Twitter handles, or knowing that every single track online is a representation of who you are. In fact, let me give you an assignment. I know people say this as cliche, but go online and Google yourself and see what comes out. Right? Go online and Google yourself and see what comes out, because those things are also adding to how people perceive you. So it's important that you're always living the digital, your digital footprints are always great. Don't go and put although I have no problem with anyone's issue if you feel like as if they're sexy, right? But don't go and put I'm too sexy at gmail.com, and then someone from, let's say, for foundation says, you know what, give me your email, I want to send you details for the grant proposal that I want you to look at, and you tell the person I'm too sexy.com. I'm like, person's like, seriously? I'm sorry, human beings judge, and that's the world that we live in. So please don't be judged in the wrong way, right? So I think that's generally my answer for that question. Like, everything matters. Digital footprint, Instagram, what you tweet. Don't tweet vulgar stuff. Don't tweet hateful stuff, because one day they're going to dig up those tweets and they are going to hold you to account. Life is that predictable.
Thank you very much, Nafisa. And it's true, the internet always remembers. And thank you very much for letting us know that we have time to figure it ourselves. So this goes to my last question. And you talked about being idiosyncratic and being authentic always. So we should always strive to be better than ourselves, other than being like others. Do you think that we girls particularly, we do always succumb to a lot of pressure of being compared to someone who's auspicious out there, someone who's doing great things, and we always feel like we need to be more of them instead of more of us, and more of them, and in the sense that we can't even follow our own path? So what would you tell a person like this who's always trying to achieve what others are trying to achieve rather than focusing on their own accomplishments?
Well, okay, what I would tell such a person is that, first of all, you are enough. Because the fact that you're trying to be like someone else or do something that someone else is doing shows that you think that you're not enough, and you are way more than enough. In fact, you are overwhelming. You are overwhelming with the fact that you cannot comprehend that you can do way more than this person has done. Right? And now let's put it in context. I don't know if we've understood the times in which we're in, but we're in a season in which batons and assignments are being passed down from one generation to another. I'm a very strong, passionate advocate of intergenerational dialogue, because the women champions that we looked up to, and we had, so much inspiration coming from them, are transitioning into a place, an older age, where they can't do that much anymore. They don't even want to do that much anymore. So they are looking and saying, who am I going to pass on this mantle of leadership to? Who am I going to pass on this mantle of advocacy to? And they cannot pass it on to people who are afraid of being themselves, who don't know themselves, or who are cemented in the confidence of who they think they are. They will not pass it to leaders who are unsure about what their capacity and assignment is. They will pass it on to people who have already exhibited capacity and have full confidence in the buoyance of their awesomeness. So while it is great to have mentors, while it is great to admire what they do, you cannot be another one of them. A lot of people, reference me and then reference my father and say, maybe she's about to be another. I'm not going to be another thing. I am going to be a thing, the singular of me, because before me there was no other, and after me there cannot be any other, right? But what we can take from generation to generation are the mantles of assignment and the sustainability of the feminist movements and the gender equality movements that have been going on ahead of time, right? So trying to be someone else and do someone else is doing yourself a disservice and doing the people that are coming after you and the people before you a disservice. The best way to position yourself in the sector in which you're in and to show that you're a young woman full of capacity is to be yourself and apologize. In fact, you just think about it. I don't know how many of you know Portable. Who knows Portable here? He has these hair is dyed plenty different colors. He's a musician from Nigeria. Anytime I see that guy, I think he's crazy. I honestly, but you see the guy is crazy with no shame. And because he's crazy with no shame, and he's bold without any shame. In fact, that is it, the courage and the boldness. He is getting everything he wants to get, and he has no apologies for anyone. Be yourself boldly and courageously without any apologies, and excel. Tell yourself in this life there is nothing that passes you. That's how we say it, like in pitching. Nothing passes you, nothing do you. If something comes, it might hit you, yes, you dust yourself, you cry, and then you get back up and you move again, because you are born resilient. And we need to develop that resilience to a place where you can literally shake anything off. And failure is not really failure, it's just a thing that you have figured out you should not do in that particular way again. So please, and please, we love our strong women that have gone ahead of us, but we cannot afford to be photocopies of them. The only thing that we can afford to be, and the only thing our world can afford us to be, is to be the true authentic versions of ourselves, because that's what the world needs right now. It doesn't need another photocopy of another person.
Amazing. So on behalf of WiLG, I would like to thank our mentor, Nafisa Atiku-Adejuwon. I hope I pronounced that well. For taking her time out of her busy schedule and talking to us about branding and the different components of branding that we did not know about. So thank you again. You're an inspirational and learning moment for me, especially for me who's from Tanzania, and I believe it's the same for the mentees that were present here. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to hearing a mass of accomplishments that you're going to achieve in the future. I'll be following you on LinkedIn, and I cannot wait. And I know the Mandela Fellowship is one of them, and I'm looking forward to a mass of a lot of accomplishment in the future. So thank you very much, Nafisa, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. So to everyone who is still here, I would like to thank you for tuning in today with us. And WiLG is forever embedded with your commitment, and we're also looking forward to having you in the sessions that we're going to have next week from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I wish you all a great evening, and I hope you learned a thing or two about branding. And please kindly spread the word, and women empowerment is the way forward. And good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.